please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, could I please have a roll call?
Supervisor Alex Sapien.
Here.
Trustee Dean Morelli.
Here.
Trustee Greg Pickus.
Present.
Trustee Carrie Johnson.
Here.
Trustee Denise Salvino. Here. Assessor Marianne Williamson. Here. Highway Commissioner Jim Louch.
Here.
Collector Justin Kennedy. Here. Attorney Gary Mueller.
Present.
Thank you, everyone. First item on the agenda for the Road and Bridge Fund today is the approval of minutes for the monthly meeting of January 14, 2025. I will need a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion by Denise Salvino, second by Karen Johnson. Any questions on the minutes? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Minutes are approved. Moving on to the bills. I have bills in the amount of $113,138.56. I will need a motion to pay the bills.
I'll make that motion.
A motion by Karen Johnson,
I'll second.
second by Denise Salvino. Any questions on the bills? Hearing none. Madam Clerk, could I please have a roll call?
Sapien.
Yes.
Morelli.
Yes.
Salvino.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Pickus.
Motion carries. Do we have any citizens wishing to address the board today in regards to the Road and Bridge Fund? Sure. Could you please come to the podium and state your name for the record? I think you do have a little microphone there now.
Yeah.
I think you have to turn it on.
Yeah, my name is Joseph Bill.
Spell your last name, please.
F-I-L-L.
Okay, thank you.
This is for Jim too. I was wondering if there's any plans to redo the road in the Lockport subdivision, especially after they did those water mains. If we're going to try and get any money or have them try to redo the patches that they did next year when the weather gets better, because they're really bad.
Yeah, and when you say patches, you're saying with the strips of blacktop?
Yeah.
Yeah, eventually, we or they will repay those. I don't think the project is complete yet, so I don't know exactly what they're gonna do. But when it starts up again in the spring, we'll address it, and we'll be going road by road and by the grade like we do in Mount Olive.
Yeah, 'cause I know the camera street was the worst, because they were driving all of that heavy machinery over it too, and, you know, the potholes that were there even worse. And the street's getting over 30 years old now,
Yeah.
so.
Good news is, you know, they replaced a lot of the infrastructure under the street, and now we got control of the pavement. So.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hearing and seeing no other residents. Moving on to the Highway Commissioner's report. Commissioner Lodge, the floor is yours.
Other than the winter weather warnings, no report tonight. Be careful tomorrow, you're going to get snow.
Thank you. I have no other business to report. Any final questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, if I could entertain a motion to recess the Road and Bridge Fund meeting until February 26th at 2:30 p.m.
I will make that motion.
A motion by Denise Salvino,
Second.
second by Greg Pickus. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, Road and Bridge Fund meeting is recessed. Moving on now to the Town Fund. First item on the agenda is the approval of minutes. I have two sets of minutes tonight. One is for the monthly meeting of January 14th, 2025. The second is for the special meeting of January 27th, 2025. I will need a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make that motion.
A motion by Karen Johnson,
I'll second.
second by Denise Salvino. Any questions on either sets of minutes? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to bills. I have total bills this month in the amount of $602,309.56. I do have a breakdown of the bills below. I will say that about $94,713.12 were for the Bonnie Bray project. Now, the township didn't actually use its money. If you look at reimbursements, which is on the next page, the Bonnie Bray Sanitary District paid us the money for their share. The thing is, because the township's name is on the contract, the funds had to come from the township. But the money, none of this money was from the township, and we're all set there. Two more things is, per the resolution that we as a board approved, we did transfer the remaining loan to Road and Bridge for that second truck that's coming soon. And then finally, we did as a board approve the second payment for the garage, but you'll notice again that for the ARPA grant we received, that amount was fully reimbursed. If you look at just regular bills for the month, it's about $118,000, which is much more typical of a normal month. Having said all that, I will need a motion to pay the bills.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Karen Johnson,
I'll second that motion.
second by Denise Alvino. Any questions on the bills? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, could I please have a roll call?
Morelli?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yes.
Beckus?
Yes.
Salvino?
Yes.
Sapien?
Yes. All right, thank you, motion carries. We'll move on. Do we have any citizens wishing to address the board today in regards to the town fund? All right, hearing and seeing none, we'll move on to the assessor's report. Madam Assessor, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So I was expecting, I had received an email from a taxpayer that said they would be here this evening. The taxpayer attended a meeting previously and discussed some of the properties in Fairmont and what they suggested were inequities. So in anticipation of that person being here, I prepared some stuff for this evening, and now they're not here. But I want to go ahead and present what I have. I want to try to get some of the statements cleared up that have been stated. So a little bit of information about the assessment process. We've spoken previously. I've talked about a taxpayer's right to ask for a review. I've spoken about how they're notified when I make a change, or if the change is made at the county level, they're notified about those things, and then they have an opportunity to ask for review or an actual appeal to the Board of Review in August. So, statute requires that I assess at 1/3 of market value, and market value within the township is established by the buyers and sellers. It's not something that I determine. If you buy a house or sell a house, that's what establishes market value. So I do a study each year, and we're required to use the previous 3 years of sales. And that's done that way purposely to help keep assessments more steady in case you have a year with really dramatically high or low sales. So each year I study the sales for the previous 3 years. When I do those studies, I do them by neighborhood. And within Lockport Township, there's probably 75 neighborhood codes. And those neighborhoods have been established since long before I was assessor. And they're really pretty much geographical. That's the logical way to do it, because you don't want to compare, the northeast corner with the southwest corner, because they're such different markets. So aside from the annual sales ratio study, I also will periodically do an equity study of a particular neighborhood. And inequity is what that particular taxpayer commented about previously and on a number of occasions. An equity study means that I'm looking at within a neighborhood, so not, across multiple neighborhoods, but within a neighborhood, I'm going to look at, say, all the split levels. I'm going to break it down by what type of houses they are, so that split levels are compared to split levels, or 2 stories are compared to 2 stories, because you don't compare a 2-story to a 1-story. That's just not the way it's done. In the last few years, since taking office in 2020, we've done, 6, 7, 8 different neighborhood equity studies. They're really time-consuming to do. There's a lot of, statistical data to search through and look at. But they're very valuable, but every neighborhood doesn't need one every year, so we do those periodically. When we break it down, we start by, the style of the house, 1-story, 2-story, construction material, frame or brick, does it have a basement? Those are the kind of features that we're looking for when we do those kind of equity studies. Inequity is the chief complaint of that taxpayer who's been to the meetings. Per the Illinois Department of Revenue, assessors can receive a monetary bonus each year through the Illinois Department of Revenue. To receive that bonus, an assessor has to meet very, very strict standards. Assessments have to be between 31 1/3 and 35 1/3%, and a coefficient of dispersion no greater than 15%. That COD, that's how far everybody is off the middle. So, if you have really wide ranges, you're never going to make that 15%. It's a very strict measurement that we have to meet, and since I took office in May of 2020, I've met those standards every year to qualify for that Department of Revenue bonus. You don't qualify for that if the equity in your township is not accurate. So I've put some things together tonight, specifically. I'm trying to be careful how I say these things, because I don't want to use any names, I guess. The taxpayer that has complained specifically about particular trustees and previous employees of the township. So what I did was I gave each of you a copy of 3 emails that I received in the last few days in anticipation of that taxpayer being here tonight. I also, if you want to hand it to me, there's Karen's. What you'll find in this particular packet is, and everything in these packets, that's for Alex, is a matter of public record. So anybody can, FOIA this information. Most of it is on my website. So what you'll find here is the emails that I received and the questions that that person had, with the information addressing those, showing that there is not the inequity that she thinks there is. You'll also each find your own home and then the home of each of the voting members of the board. And the grid that you'll see in there is what I have to present when I go to the Board of Review. So I think, Greg, you and I talked about this maybe last year, about your assessment in particular, and what you have to do if you want to file with the Board of Review to have a change to your assessed value. So what I did is I prepared a grid so that you can each see where your assessed value is and how it compares to your neighbors, to show that those are equitable, that they're not actually off in the way the person indicates. Some of the things that you want to note on those property record cards are like the neighborhood code. So, for example, Greg, your neighborhood code is Pine Valley. That's like where the neighborhood you live in. So is Denise's. But I would never compare you two because your houses are nothing alike. So that's one of the things that is important to see on those grids. I didn't fill everything in on them because it's a very time-consuming process. So I did kind of a general overview of each of your properties so that you can each see your own and each other, so that when this subject comes up again in the future, it's clear that no one is getting special treatment, which is what has been the implied accusation. So that's what's in there. It's a lot of information in there. You know, if you have questions about what's in there, you know, I encourage you to reach out. There's a few definitions in there. Just stuff that my office, we do every day that's being questioned about how we do things. So I wanted everybody to see what's really factual. And then if anybody has any questions, I'll, you know, if you have a question now, I can maybe answer it. Once you look it over, if you want to call me, that'd be great.
So, the first question I would have is, you talked about the 75 neighborhoods. How do you establish the area of the neighborhood?
So they actually were established before I even began working here, and they're done by geography pretty much, and assessors can actually do that. You can set your neighborhoods any way you want, really, that is logical. Or you could do the whole township as one study, but if I did the whole township as one study, then Romeoville would get compared to, say, Lago Vista. So they're broken up by neighborhood. So for instance, in Crest Hill, we have the senior communities. They are each their own neighborhood. And then there's what we call Section 33, that's the Cheney neighborhood. When you come over here to Lockport, we have Lago Vista. As new subdivisions came in, they would become their own neighborhood. So Lago Vista is its own neighborhood. Newberry Ridge is its own neighborhood. What we call Section 23, and we call it that because it has to do with its identifying PIN number and section number according to mapping. So Section 23 is like the old central houses of downtown Lockport. Lockport has Pine Valley, Newberry Ridge, Port Ridge is another kind of subdivision. That's how we break that down.
So if there are houses, I mean, the way the township's broken up, like there's unincorporated sections and incorporated sections, how do you break out the houses that are unincorporated because they don't have sewer and water? How could they be grouped in with other properties in the same area?
They don't need to be broken out necessarily. Some with sewer and water are in an unincorporated area, but not necessarily always. So in terms of equity, that's not something I would break out as part of the study, because it's not a big enough factor. Part of what is determined by equity is how much of a factor it is. And that may show up in a sale when it sells, and then that would play into like what kind of increases or decreases the neighborhood has. But in terms of using it in an equity study, it's not a big enough feature to make a difference. And I would determine that based on, the process that we use as part of doing equity. Anybody else?
All right, thank you. Now we'll move on to the clerk's report. Madam Clerk, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Supervisor. The clerk's office has been very busy in this past month, preparing for various activities that are coming up. They've set our Lockport Township early voting days and times for the April 1st, 2025 consolidated election. I've included that sheet for you as well. All qualified residents of Will County may choose to early vote here at our Lockport Township building, Community Room 1463 South Fair Road, Lockport. Grace period voting will be available. Starts March 17th. The 25-26 budgets are on display in the clerk's office for the required 30-day time period and are available for public inspection during our normal township business hours. The legal notices for the 25-26 budget public hearings to be held on March 3rd, 2025 at 6 p.m. at the Lockport Township Building were published in the Joliet Herald News. A reminder to everyone that any agenda items requests for the annual town meeting agenda must be submitted to the clerk's office by March 1st, 2025. Please make sure to refer to the power of the electors for guidance on what type of agenda items can be submitted. In the past month, the clerk's office has had over 95 notarizations since January 16th. FOIA requests have been weekly. And additionally, our diaper drive program has distributed over 45 diaper bundles to those in need. And that's all.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We'll move on to the next topic on the agenda. Do we have any comments or suggestions from the trustees tonight? Hearing none, we'll move on to the building report. So we do have senior maintenance here today, but just a very quick and brief overview for me. So for the garage, the new garage, which they did pass final inspection from the city. The architect also came by last week and approved it. I know a couple of brief tours were given to certain board members, but with that, I'll hand it over to senior maintenance. They'd like to give us a more technical update, please.
Good evening, everyone. Excuse me. Just I helped you to walk through, that I walked through today. Just carrying on from that from last week. Today or yesterday, I met with Fire Marshal Fitzgerald from the Lockport Township Fire Department and our Quinlan representative, and we passed our fire alarm system, passed inspection. Was pointed out that we do need to have a fire extinguisher put in there. That's going to correlate with Friday. I have Integrity Fire Services come in. They're going to do our annual inspection on the fire extinguishers, so I notified them he's going to bring us the fire extinguisher and the mounting bracket. Fire Marshal Fitzgerald was kind enough, gave me the leeway to accept a picture. I'll take a picture of that mounted in the garage where we asked me to mount it, and then he will pass the fire stuff off to the city, so we'll be done with both the fire part of that, so that'll be taken care of. Today, the guy from Quinlan is back again, so the security system is complete today. He's wrapped that up. And the CPSI, they came and put the radio in today, and that's what, if there was a signal from our fire alarm box, that sends it to Westcom. So they had to have the system tested first. That passed, then they were able to come and go ahead and put this radio system in. That got completed today as well. So pretty much lastly for the building part, at least for right now, I have O-Strike, that's a lock service coming from Joliet. We deal with them for our building keys. They're gonna get the new door key for work with our building key and get the existing garage door key for our building key. So we don't have 6 different keys, we try 3 different keys we're trying to keep up with. So all the drivers have a key just in case for some reason the pin pad went out or something like that, they can still get in the garage. So I'll just pass this around. I only put one once again for ink. Last week we put the 2 old buses, the van and the work truck in before we had that little icing event. It's a little maneuver to get them in there. It takes up a lot of space with the 2 buses in there, the van and the truck. But it does fit, and you have to keep them out of the weather, which is nice to know be out of the weather tomorrow when we get the snow. So it also opens up the parking lot for the snow removal, so that worked out good. So there's a few items to be completed. Alex and I talked with the guys from Action One last week, but they didn't realize that they're in the process. I'm hoping to be done by the end of the week of removal of the extra material out there, the metal that's sitting along the driveway they're going into the old garage. Their bigger truck, I guess, broke down last week, so they didn't have a truck big enough to go on there. They couldn't get that running. They were going to bring a trailer to remove that, along with their equipment, their trailer, the lull that's out there, and their small backhoe. I don't know what they're planning on doing. They might think about leaving the bobcat here somewhere we can tuck it around the back of the building or the side. Because we're not going to be able to get the dirt, the ground's frozen right now. We really can't see right now anyway, so in discussion with Action One, I think that's going to be probably end of March, April, sometime early spring. We'll get the black dirt and the seed in. There's a couple things brought up, some cosmetic stuff inside the garage, maybe like some type of a cover, a cage over the vent fan in case someone be working. We hope we would turn the breaker off before we did that, but just in case we did, we'll try to look into out through Action One. I'll see if we can find something that maybe mounts over that. It's just as a safety precaution. There might be a couple other questions, but other than that, we're really at a home stretch, so I'd like to, I guess, personally thank you guys all for, first off, passing it. I think it's gonna be an asset to the township for many years to come. Not only for the storage needs that we have, but for, you know, to add some extra years to our vehicles, that'll help keep, you know, those costs down as well, so. Thank you, I guess, and if there's any questions on who I can answer them.
Thank you, Dave, for providing us with updates all the time on the job and staying on top of them and making sure that they're doing what needed to be done and giving us a little tour.
My pleasure, anytime.
Yeah, thank you for the report.
Thanks.
So did actually one provide us with submittals for the products they put in? Or did they just go exactly what was on the blueprints, what we spec'd out?
I did pretty much what they spec'd out on.
So we didn't spec out for the doors to match our locks here?
Well, it came, whatever the lock company that came with, it came with the lock that has a blank key on it. There's no keys on it, so I don't know what was spec'd on the print for the door lock.
Okay.
You know, we have just like pretty much like an old round lock on the old door to the old garage, so it's a lever lock. And that's, I can show you the key here, I'd never seen one before, it's just a blank, and it slides in, and that's what opens, and that's what allows the lock. So it would have to be keyed to some type of a tumbler anyway, I guess, because anybody, I guess, could find a blank like this.
Yeah.
But that's for that door there right now, so it's,
Okay.
that's why we're getting it out there to get that key.
And I think you mentioned it works through magnetism, right?
That's what I thought, but when the guy was here from Oak Strike to kind of see what we were looking for, he said it's a blank, and that's what they do in a lot of them. And then companies or businesses get them keyed to what their keys are, or get a specific key made for them, so.
You said you're gonna get in touch with them regarding that exhaust fan and get some type of a cover for that control for the
Yes.
CO monitor.
And that trim around there too, and then if you know, I can talk to you too about that pipe, if you want, they got that little backhoe here, I can have them dig it, and, well, if there's a, I
know they refused to say they're doing it wrong, but I know it's wrong.
Well, I mean,
And I checked it and pointed it out to them months ago, so.
well, I
guess
don't know
have
what
to
the elevation on it.
Wait until spring now.
I mean, I don't know what the elevation, well, it's not, you know, it's not graded or anything, but it's still, I mean, they just put it in there and flatten it out. If they got the machine here, if you think we need to dig it up, I'll talk to them and dig it up, and if, I think that, this is my only thing that I would say is, and I'm not sticking up, I have no skill in this game. Everything else I did with that garage, they did per the drawing. So, I don't want to be the guy, I don't sound like I know it all, but I would figure that if they did everything else per our architect's drawing, that followed suit. You know, I mean, we can have them dig it up, it's not finished or anything. I guess if we need to, and they got the machine here, if we need to dig it up, put some numbers, or shoot a laser or level on it, I guess what I.
It shows certain elevation numbers on the blueprint, where that train's supposed to come out, and it shows a different type of outlet for it. It shows it coming out into an opening, not going into the ground. Right now, what we have out there is it goes into a hole, and the water will come up out of the top of the drain if the hole overflows. But right now, the hole's only 2 feet deep, and it's full of ice. So this whole pipe is full of ice now, because it's only 2 feet deep, so the frost is that deep. And it's the whole pipe's full. You know what happens to pipes when they have water in them, when they're frozen, they're gonna break. And it's gonna just keep heaving, and it's gonna be problems for us going forward, and it's not according to plans. The plans show a totally different outlet for the drains coming out of there. And this is something I mentioned from the very start. I mentioned it 6 months ago.
So, I mean, I believe that this was, you know, it was kind of installed in phases, but I believe the most recent update we received probably a month or two ago when we were selling it, I think there was like actual pictures of the pitch that were.
There is, but there's an elevation number. The elevation numbers around here are 770 something. So I don't know the exact numbers, but I can show you on the blueprint to show the exact elevation at the bottom that pipe's supposed to be at. If it's not at that elevation, it's gonna drain, it's not gonna drain according to the drainage designation on our plat survey.
So then, and I mean this, you know, respectfully, what would you advise that we ask the contractor to, I guess, prove or verify that it's a correct elevation or is not?
I would like him to come out here with a laser and uncover the bottom of that pipe. We can measure from the top of the foundation, which is a given elevation, and the bottom of that pipe is another given elevation. It's on that drawing.
Okay. I'll see what we can do.
And there's a detail that shows how that, on the drawings that show how that's supposed to go out onto the grass there. It's not supposed to go into a hole, it's supposed to go out at grade.
Yeah, but I think one of the reasons why they put in that container, correct me if I'm wrong, Dave, is, right, so there wouldn't be as much water overflowing. I think that was one of the concerns that was brought up before.
Well, what they did was they made a problem for themselves by putting that holding area in, so it holds water. And if it's not 4 foot deep, the water's gonna be frozen.
Gotcha.
If anybody knows, how deep is anything that would be buried around here? Jim, I mean, everybody's water service, it's gotta be at least 4 foot deep. Or it's gonna be frozen in the ground.
Gotcha. Yeah, we'll reach out to the contractor and see what we can do.
Okay.
Any other questions while we still have senior maintenance here? Well, then we'll move on then to one of the potential approvals for the night, and that's the third invoice for the new garage. So I included a packet. It starts with, the first page is new garage payment, just to give everyone a quick breakdown of the contract. But so currently, a total of $313 out of the $585,000. So that's a little over 50% has been paid. Now, this is not including any potential change orders. And so far, the entire amount, that $313,000, has been reimbursed through the ARPA grant we received. So there's $326,400 in that total grant. So there's $13,400 left in the grant. The contract states that the 70% payment is due upon completion of the sheetrock and when it's ready for painting. That happened in January, and then 100% of the payment is due upon final inspection and completion of the punch list. Now, pending punch list items, there is a 10% retainage. So in this case, the final inspection was passed. The only punch list items that are left is, one, the removal of the machinery currently on the township grounds. The second is the seeding of effective landscaping, and as maintenance mentioned, that's pending suitable weather, and that's an estimated value of around $2,000. So, if we were to follow the contract to the T, then we would have to submit another payment that goes up to, from the 53% all the way up to about 90%. The contractor did submit an invoice. That third invoice would leave a remaining balance about $70,275, plus as well as the change orders. That's not included. So that's about 12%. So that's a little above the 10% retainage. Does anyone have any questions on approving the third invoice for the new garage?
I'm looking at his application for payment, but it doesn't have any change orders on it at all. First page on
You're saying that the
our
first,
first change order summary, and there's nothing in there.
I got it down in the left-hand corner at the bottom, it's got the change orders in the box.
Oh, that's good.
Oh, that's weird. It's got a different version.
So we didn't approve these change orders, and they just decided that this is what needed to be done.
I guess in short, sure. I didn't ever sign any change orders. I never physically signed any of them. I will say though, because I did meet with the contractor last week, told him about potentially revising this invoice, because I mentioned, I'm like, hey, we could potentially pay a third invoice, but those change orders have to be approved separately. So then, rather than revise that line item that says change orders, the amount would still stay the same. That $12,000 though would just be added into the general amount. So the change orders, those would be potentially approved separately, and those would be separate payments. But the total amount he is requesting regardless is the $208,800. Does anyone have any questions?
What you just said, that the current payment without the change orders is 208? Is that what you just said?
Yes.
Okay. Well, that includes the change orders.
Right, so what I'm saying is, again, I brought up to the contractor, I said, hey, I'm not gonna pay for the change orders, those have to be approved separately. I mean, I could ask him for like a more revised invoice, but given the time between when we met and when I have to send out the packet, I told him, and he said, okay, well, what I could do then is remove the change orders line, but then I'm just gonna increase my general, so that first line, it says general actual construction, he was just gonna increase that by, the 12,275. So either way, the amount is the same. The change orders, again, if we were to potentially approve those, that would be a separate check. Does that make sense?
No, I'm not sure what you mean by he's just gonna add it on to his general.
I mean, because we still owe him, the total amount owed is still $585,000.
$585?
Or five, yeah, five,
580, right?
580,000.
It says original contract
580,000.
So that's what he computed for the change.
And then if you look on page 2 where they specifically say according to change orders, is the first one the phony pipes, is that the issue that you're talking about?
That's the first one, and then they went and made another change with the adding of concrete in between the buildings and removing a door and a window. And I'm not sure if we got our money's worth on that change order there.
All right, so how about,
Because they removed some work, and I didn't see any type of detailed explanation. It was just a change order number.
all right, so then how about, we also review then some of the change orders?
And we've asked for this from him, and he doesn't seem to want to explain.
Right, so here, we'll, I included in the packet, so after the new garage payment packet that I wrote up, I tried, again, I met with, senior maintenance, I met with the contractor last week to clear more things up. I personally, my personal thought, and this is just for the board only to consider, is that we could potentially approve the third invoice today, but the change orders, we don't have to approve those today. And I let the contractor know very clearly that I would present these to the board, and maybe some are approved, some are not, but that either way, if the board had questions, I have no issue delaying payment for the change orders until we got what the board wanted. So the first part of the change orders that says invoice, right? So it says total cost $12,275. We can consider that as kind of like the cover page. And then they try to break it out a little bit. Change order number 1 is, relocating the water and electrical pipe. That happened way back in like October or September. Then there's a change order number 2 and number 3. Number 2 is regarding the fire alarm drawing. Number 3 is regarding the fire alarm panel. And then number 4 is matching the metal paint in the back to look like the existing garage. And then the change order, there should be one listed as number 5, but that's regarding the concrete that you mentioned. But if we go through them in order, right, the first one where, again, his claim is that this is an itemized change order, right, so $6,500 total. I did ask him very clearly, I'm like, I want something, I want some receipts, something. So,
This one, this is a street opening? This was next in my pack, next one.
Yeah, I got it all.
Well, you need to one, I do, so I would give it to you.
It's in the rest of the packet. It's not underneath a couple more things. Yeah. Yeah, it's not in that.
Well, for construction stuff?
No, it's not.
Separate.
It's separate.
Okay.
It does show a credit for that service door and that window that was not.
Wait, quick thing, I think I saw like a ThriveWorks invoice in the packet.
At Bradley.
Well, there's no ThriveWorks invoice for this month, so is there a chance you maybe opened the packet from the previous month? Because I know for you, you had 2 packets, the previous month and this month.
I don't think so, unless it got put in with my packet, because I only opened 1 packet today.
What's it, General?
What's the chimney?
Yeah, do you need both those, please?
Is that thing explaining why I have this?
Jim,
They didn't give you new packets today.
It
What
definitely
about
was a
the
new packet.
scholarships or not?
Wait,
I got
sorry.
I think that was enough, yeah, I only looked, I mean, the rest of my packets, right, this part.
You know what, let me give you this, because I don't need to vote on this. I think it's important for you to have it.
Yeah, here, we'll restart here then. So, yeah, that first page is like a cover page, if you will, where they said, here's the total change orders, 12,275. And then the second page lists the change orders with the balance. Look at then the following page, they give, again, what they claim is an itemized invoice of the $6,500 change order, which is relocating the water and electrical. And then again, I remember the board mentioning this, that we want to see something more itemized, we want to see receipts. So they at the very least gave me the receipt from the plumbing subcontractor, which is $3,800. And then their claim is that the difference between the $3,800 and the $6,500, you know, was material and other labor for the excavation, which was done by themselves. So that's the first change order. And then I did include some pictures they had taken of before and after that change order was done. Do you have any questions or anything on that change order?
No, I don't have any more questions.
So then, look at this next change order. So this is regarding the concrete and the surface door and the windows. So again, the cost of the door was $2,600. The window was $6,400. 640. So in total, that's, you know, a little over $3,200. The price for the concrete is $60 per square foot. They told me that half was for labor and half was for materials, so in total that was $5,040. So the difference between the two, right, if we take one as credit and we find the difference, it's $1,800. And so, you know, there may be a difference in labor, et cetera, but they were willing to just call it a wash and just have the two break even. So the reason I'm going through these change orders, again, I want to respect the board's time, but I just want to go through these change orders in case we would like, you know, to ask the contractor for more information. Yeah, we don't need to approve these tonight, but if there's more information we'd like to request so that we can make a decision in the future, you know, that's where I'd like some input from the board.
Did you instruct him to go ahead and remove the door and the window and add the concrete, or was that, who made that decision?
Sure, so for the concrete, that was all him. The one day we walked out and it was just a thought that we considered of, oh, you know, maybe they could add some concrete. Next day we see they'd already worked it out. And a lot of these kind of decisions where they were just made on point blank. So for example, like the back of the garage, you know, everything was at a standstill and they're like, we absolutely cannot wait a few days to put in the back, that's extra skirt on the garage. You need to do either now, or I can't do any work. So in that case, yes, I did verbally tell, all right, we have to add the back, we're getting a lot of input from residents. Do it, but give me a quote. So that one, yes. The concrete, that was all good. As well as relocating the electrical, that happened. The city told me immediately to relocate it. They did it. By the time they relocated it, it was the end of the day, and they told me, hey, just a heads up, we did this. We're gonna need to submit a change order. A lot of this is because, again, the contractor was just moving very, very fast. And they just, again, the timing was also not good because it wasn't like a day before a board meeting or something. This would be like a week after the board meeting.
And I know this doesn't matter, but if I were to go and dig and hit somebody's gas line on their property when I was digging, they would have said to me, well, why didn't you have that located prior to digging? And it says in our documents that we should locate all utilities prior to excavating. The people you call for Jolie don't do that, but there are companies that'll come out because there is a line, there is an electrical line right next to our gas line running out there. So is it our duty to pay for him not doing his due diligence? I understand we want to take care of the contractor and get him paid, but I'm in this business, and this is the same things I would hear if I were to go to a general contractor and say, hey, I want you to pay for this, I just decided to do this, so I think it's going to be better for you, but here's my extra. Can you pay me for this? Did somebody sign that? No. Don't sell it.
Yeah, that change order one, didn't we actually approve that?
Which change order?
The one about the relocating the pipes.
No, it's been on the agenda. It's been on the agenda about twice, but we've tabled it both times. The reason is that we wanted more information. So in this case, the more information I got was the pictures and then the invoice from the plumbing subcontractor. Okay. Just make sure the meeting's moving along. Do we feel like we have enough information to make a decision on paying for the invoice?
That's all discussion on.
All right, well, guess there's only one way to find out. Could I entertain a motion to pay the third invoice for the new garage?
I'll make that motion.
A motion by Karen Johnson,
I'll second.
second by Dean Morelli.
What's the total number of that invoice?
So for the check, $208,800. Madam Clerk, please have roll call.
Sapien,
Yes.
Morelli,
Yes.
Vegas,
No.
Johnson,
Yes.
Salvino.
No.
Motion carries. Moving on now to, so change orders, again. Is there any information that we want to make a decision on these change orders? Or even if I bring extra information, is that not going to change anyone's decision?
The $208,000 includes his extras. You guys just approved the extras.
No, again, like the change orders, we pay them separately.
Alex, your invoice, $208,000 includes $12,000 in extras. You approved it. You're done.
But again, if we revise the invoice, it would have just gone to general. Like the amount would have still been the same.
Like a shell game.
It's not a good way to do business.
Well, I mean, we've been dealing with this building for 5 years now, and I think we're getting to the finish line, and I know we always thought that it was too high or whatever the case may be, but we had an engineer do it, everything, tests, inspections, everything else. I mean, that's what it is.
And I'm happy again to before we do send a check, just request the revised invoice, but again, it was just given the time constraint between the meeting of the contractor when I got the invoice and, you know, when I had to put it into the packet, so if we wanna just cross our Ts and dot our Is, we would have to revise the invoice.
Yeah, and I just did the math, that's, the 12,000 is not included in that. It's a weird format here where you can't tell what they're doing, but it's the contract, the original contract sum, less the other payments and less the 10% held back is 208,000. So, the 12,275 is not included in that 208,000, 208,800.
Sounds like the invoice is a little
It's just.
funky,
Yeah,
but I can
it's
ask them to
not-
clarify,
not-
just for auditing purposes before we do pay. Okay. So regarding the change orders, again, what, I'd like to hear from the board, what further information would you like to see from either of them, or do we feel like the board has made a decision?
I think, Greg, is your only concern with the relocation of the lines, or do you have concerns about the other change orders as well?
The other change orders I don't have a problem with.
So would you be willing
The
then?
change order that he's given us to us is a wash, because the project is not completed as spec. When a change order has, it's not even listed in there with the concrete, there's no, he's provided us a credit, he's making it zero. It's just sloppy accounting, I guess it's gonna get approved, so I don't know what I'm not gonna belabor the subject.
Well, we're arguing over $12,000 on a $500,000 building. I mean, I understand your point that you don't feel that, you know, things are done properly, this and that, but, it's to this point now where the building's built, we're using it, everything's done approved as far as inspection wise.
So I guess, let me ask this question. So, Trustee Vickers, you mentioned that you're fine with everything else except the relocation of the electrical line. So for that specific change order, is there any additional information you'd like to see? Or is it your decision's made and you just disagree with the premise of it?
We shouldn't have to pay that because it shouldn't have been damaged from, and if it was in there, he should have come to us, he should have located it, come to us and says, hey, we need to move this. And it's been like, well, what's it gonna take to move this? Give us some numbers, instead of just doing work and sending us the invoice.
And I think there was a damage, it's just if it was too close to something.
No, it was damaged, there was
Oh, it was
gas.
damaged?
Right, yeah.
Okay.
I guess, okay, so if we focus on that subject, that first change order, not considering the others, it's a $6,500 change order. How does the rest of the board feel about that?
I think you could raise it with him and say we have new concerns that, they should have done their diligence before starting work, and see what they have to say, just open that conversation.
Okay. Again, I'm fine with that. Is the rest of the board good with that? If we potentially put up for a roll call, approve the other change orders, but then we would table the $6,500.
What kind of thing? And then the other, I'm trying to find the change order that he has for the moving of concrete in these pages.
That's the, I think the one that's zeroed out.
It's zeroed out,
It's
right?
just, it's called proposal instead of change. It's, 3 pages from the end. And that stuff.
Can you flip it for me?
Am I able to say something?
Sure. Oh, I actually,
It's not technically right now. Do you mind if we continue our discussion, then we can talk after?
There's separate things there.
on the other side of the cup.
There you go. Somewhere. Oh, okay. giving us $1,800 credit. So my question is everybody okay with the changes that we made? Removing the door and removing the window? And it passed inspections. I didn't know if there was gonna be a problem with that because we have to have two points of egress in a building.
Well, what I will say is, the window posed a potential security hazard. We've already had some issues with our vehicles that are left outside and they need vandalized or something. We just didn't want to leave the window up to chance. For the utility door, those utility doors are very pricey. And so when we checked with the city, in fact, the actual blueprint and everything was changed by the city at no cost. So we didn't have to go back to the architect to get that redesigned. Just because it is a relatively small building, I know we had to add in a fire alarm system, but it's still small enough where we could just have one utility door. And then the concrete, the reason that was brought up, and again, I was just surprised at how fast the contractor moved, because this was just a point of discussion, was that currently, what would have been between the two garages is a very small sidewalk, and then each end of the sidewalk closest to each garage is literally just a bunch of gravel and big rocks. And so staff had mentioned that it would be significantly easier if we just had a full concrete sidewalk that extended to each side of the garage, because it would be much easier to plow. And it, of course, would have a pitch so the water flows down. Again, that was something that was brought up, and then the contractor just kind of went ahead and did it. But it was something that, staff and even myself thought would be a good idea.
Does anybody have a problem with the changes, with removing the door and the window? And, you gave us a credit for $1,800, which probably makes up for the labor that would, the cost to put the door and the window in.
Yeah, I think we discussed that a couple minutes ago.
So,
Nobody was concerned.
I'm okay with that change order.
Okay. All right, so I think what we'll do, again, there's a couple of change orders. I want to make sure we don't miss any. The fire alarm ones, move on to those. So the first one for peak single, $975. I included in the change orders, it's less of a change order, more of an invoice. Again, this was one we managed to kind of stop in time and get approved by the board in November. But we found it cheaper to use our own subcontractor for the fire alarm than to use theirs. Ours was about $11,000, theirs was about $16,000, which we felt was a little high. Problem is that the subcontractor had already gone out the drawing, but our new subcontractor couldn't, and say they'd just be able to use the drawing, and then they discounted that from the invoice. So cost-wise, nothing changed, but it is still something we need to approve.
Okay.
Two more change orders. This next change order, this is the fire alarm electrical. So something similar is, again, the subcontractor Quillen said, hey, we can't really do the electrical for this garage. We prefer if the electrical is already set up and then we just install the fire alarm. This was to the point where, again, because of the timeline, it had to be done pretty quickly. So we had scouted and looked at other subcontractors, but they were taking too long to get us quotes. So we just went with the subcontractor and they gave us this invoice. But the contractor isn't charging us, any markup. They just gave us the invoice directly. So that's the $2,500. And then the final change order, but it's not individual, and it seems like on the cover page. That's again to get the metal pane to match the existing garage. They didn't have to purchase any extra material, they had some leftovers, but they charged $1,000 per labor. Do you have any questions on those other change orders? Okay. So, I think what we'll propose to the board is we table the change order electrical, gas, and water, and then we put the other change orders, so the concrete and windows, fire alarm drawing, fire alarm electrical, and the aesthetic modification to a vote. So if I can entertain a motion to table the change order on electrical, gas, and water.
I'll make that motion.
A motion by Karen Johnson,
Second.
second by Lisa Alvino. All those in favor?
Right.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. Now, if I could. I could entertain a motion to approve the following change orders. The change order on concrete windows in the door, the change order on the fire alarm drawing, the change order on the fire alarm electrical, and the change order on the aesthetic modification on the back of the garage.
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion by Karen Johnson, second by Denise Alvino. Madam Clerk, could I please have a roll call?
Salvino,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Vickers,
Yes.
Morelli,
Yes.
Sapien.
Yes. All right, motion carries. Thank you, everyone. Again, I have a written note where I will discuss the change order 6500 with the contractor. I'll be sending out that meeting soon. Perfect. All right, so the next item on the agenda, and this is still related to the garage. There should be an image in everyone's packet. It's a picture of a pallet rack taken from Uline. So again, speaking with maintenance, we do have these racks. We do have these racks in the existing garage, and it's just to expand what we can store. So they suggested that we purchase 3 of these racks and then 6 additional beams, which would increase the amount of shelves from 2 to 3 in each rack, and the total cost for that would be $25.50. And again, these would just go on one of the back walls, and this would be to increase space for items. Does anyone have any questions on this?
So what they're looking for is 2 foot deep ones. So they're gonna be 7 foot.
Yeah, this is exactly what maintenance gave me, and this is the exact copy of what we have in the existing garage. If I could then entertain a motion to purchase the racks for the new garage.
I'll make that motion.
A motion by Karen Johnson,
I'll second.
second by Lisa Alvino. Madam Clerk, could I please have a roll call?
Morelli,
Yes.
Salvino,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Sapien,
Yes.
Vickers.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. All right, next item on the agenda, and I'll bring it up on the screen as well. So, in our previous meetings, in our January meeting, we did purchase tickets for the Lockport State of the City address. This time, Romeoville is having their State of the Village address on March 20th. Wanted to see if people were interested in attending. I'll open up the breakdown that we have for our line item for city projects. We still have about a little over $5,000 left, and the fiscal year does end at the end of February. So, are there people interested in attending this?
Yes, I am. I can't, I really don't. I'll be around my office, sorry.
I think what I can do though, just to make it easier, in case people want to think about this, is we can approve up to 9, and then I'll just have, myself, right, and just RSVP just like we've done before. So if I could entertain a motion to purchase up to 9 tickets for the Romeoville State of the Village address.
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion by Karen Johnson,
I'll second.
seconded by Denise Alvino. Madam Clerk, could I please have a roll call?
Salvino,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Vickers,
Yes.
Morelli,
Yes.
Sapien.
Yes. Right. Motion carries. Again, we'll reach out and ask people if they're interested. So, moving on to new business. So first item on new business is an update on the scholarships. So we actually did see a very large increase in the amount of scholarship applications. My guess would be that it's because we included it in our newsletter. So previously, if for 4 scholarships, we get maybe 5 or 6 applications. This time we got 17 for the general scholarship and 3 for the new military scholarship. So we do have our work cut out for us to make this decision. I did simplify the scoring sheet a little bit more, but For context, the deadline to submit scholarships was on February 7th. What I'd like to ask of the board is if everyone should have received a packet for scholarships. If you're interested in participating in the selection, if you could please review them by March 3rd, which is our next official board meeting. From there, we let the schools know around April of the decision, and they kind of individually let winners know so that when they, so they can announce it at their own scholarship night. And then the township, of course, we ask for the winners to come in the June meeting, to come in just for a quick awards. So, and then I ask the board if you're interested and willing to review 20 scholarships and provide input, you could please do so by March 3rd. Thank you. So, community mental health update. I know I usually include an invoice. I didn't receive an invoice quite yet. I did reach out to them. Usually we get it by the 5th. So I reached out to them on the 6th, and they let me know that their usual person that's supposed to the invoice was on vacation. I did ask them just for a preliminary amount. Again, I didn't receive an invoice, but they said that amount spent for January was about $13,000. But again, what we usually do is we have our finance manager, we review the invoice just to make sure there's no inconsistent amounts. But I'll have another update soon. Newsletter update. So again, I would remind the board that we awarded the bid to Visor Graphic, who is the printer that also prints the newsletters for Lockport Township Park District as well as the village of Romeoville. We are currently in the final stretch. We do have a first draft of the upcoming spring newsletter, and now it's just working out the design kinks, grammar, etc. So potential timeline, again, we're hoping it goes out sometime before the end of the month. We are a little bit ahead of schedule, but that was intentional because we do have a new vendor. Upcoming events, I would remind everyone that the Lockport State of the City is next Tuesday, February 18th, starts at 11:30, and that location is at Rancho Los Guzman, so it's right, I know it's just right down the street. Another thing is a mobile DMV. Back around December, the city of Lockport was hoping to have a mobile DMV, and they found out they wouldn't be able to house it just given their space restrictions, so they actually handed it over to us. And it's on Friday, March 14th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. I wanted to advertise in the newsletter, but there's only 50 spots. We announced it on Facebook on Friday, and they're all reserved. So so that one's full, but there will be a mobile DMV at the Senior Expo, and that will be closer to June. And then finally, again, the Romeoville State of the Village will be on Thursday, March 20th, starting at 11:30. I have no other business, don't have any meeting or correspondence. Any final questions or comments from the board?
I just wonder if that doesn't cost us anything to have the mobile DMV here.
Correct, nothing.
I'm wondering if we might make that monthly, if we're open to it, since they closed down the DMV. You see a lot of the stuff in the community group about people not liking that.
So I did look that up.
Yeah.
Here's the issue. So the city of Lockport, when they have theirs, and again, they handed it over to us, that one they were hoping to have it in January. But when I reached out to them within a day, they said, we can't do January, that was a special exception. We have like 3 dates available in the year. One is the June one you already have. The other is sometime in March, and the next one will be available for like December. So it really just is a capacity standpoint for them, because mobile DMVs are a very just requested service. But I wish we could have it on.
Especially with us having to have
Yeah.
real IDs by May 7th or something. You have to switch over if you haven't, I'm sure a lot of people are
Yeah.
anxious to get that done.
See if we can put a request in for 2026.
Yeah, we
We
can,
can research that. Try to make it a regular thing.
yeah, I'll see what I can do, but it's just a capacity issue. Otherwise, I'd love to have it even like every Friday or something. So, okay. Can I entertain a motion to recess the town meeting until February 26th at 2:30 p.m.?
I'll make that motion.
A motion by Denise Salvino, second by Greg Dickus. All those in favor? Opposed? All right, the town meeting is recessed. Thank you. We'll move on now to the senior fund. So the first item on the agenda for the senior fund is the monthly meeting for January 14, 2025. I will need a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make that motion.
A motion by Denise Salvino, second by Brad Victus. Any questions on the minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to bills. I have bills in the amount of $80,749.65. I will need a motion to pay the bills.
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion by Karen Johnson,
Second.
second by Brad Victus. Any questions on the bills this month?
I just have a quick question.
Yep.
I see this bus lettering, is that changing the font for the phone number on the back of the bus?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep, the phone number is now the largest thing on the back of the bus by far.
Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions? Hearing none. Hearing a motion in a second. Madam Clerk, if I could please have a roll call.
Morelli,
Yes.
Vickers,
Yes.
Sapia,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Salvino. Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. Do we have any citizens wishing to address the board tonight in regards to the senior fund? Hearing none, moves on now to the bus report, a new business. Don't have any new business for the bus report, I'll be brief. But we ended the 2024 year with a total of 6,087 trips. The average to about 507 trips per month, for about 25.2 rides per day. And now we're starting off the 2025 year with 542 trips in January. There was 21 business days before the bus was operational. Averages out to about 25.8, or about a little under 26 bus rides per day. And so if you look at Exhibit C, which is the graph below, you see that, then you see a slight positive upward trend in terms of trips given. Any questions on the bus report? And no other business. Any final questions or comments from the board? All right, hearing none, can I entertain a motion to recess the senior meeting until February 26th at 2:30 p.m.?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Denise Salvino,
A second.
second by Karen Johnson. All those in favor? Opposed? Senior fund meeting is adjourned. We'll move on now to general assistance. Excuse me, meeting is recessed, thank you. General assistance, first item on the agenda is the approval of minutes for the monthly meeting of January 14, 2025. I will need a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make that motion.
A motion by Karen Johnson,
I'll second.
second by Denise Salvino. Any questions on the minutes? All right, hearing none. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to bills. I have bills in the amount of $20,024.20. I will need a motion to pay the bills.
I'll make that motion.
A motion by Karen Johnson,
I'll second.
second by Denise Salvino. Any questions on the bills? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, I please have a roll call.
Sapia,
Yes.
Morelli,
Yes.
Vickers,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Salvino.
Yes.
Motion carries. Moving on, do we have any citizens wishing to address the board tonight in regards to general assistance fund? All right, hearing none, move on to G, report new business. I have no new or old business. I'll be quick with the report. If you look at the last two sheets in the packet, we have the first report labeled System Activity Report. So that shows that we had 13 total applications this month. 2 were in process at the time of the report's printing, meaning they were still pending, no decision was made yet. 1 was eligible for general assistance, which is a recurring monthly assistance, but that requires redetermination every month. 10 were not eligible for general assistance. Of those 10, 9 were eligible for emergency assistance and 1 was not eligible. The total grant amount for this month was $6,212.56. The grant disbursement sheet shows how those 10 grants were broken down. In the case of one individual, it was a grant split into 2 bills. And then if you were to look at the bill list, all the numbers add up. Any questions on the GA report? All right, any final questions or comments or thoughts from the board? Hearing none, if I could entertain a motion to recess the general assistance meeting until February 26th at 2:30 p.m.
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion by Denise Salvino,
A second.
second by Karen Johnson. All those in favor? Opposed? All right. Meeting is recessed. February 25th. Thanks, everyone.